Good evening, members. Welcome to the meeting of Scrutiny Committee for Leader, Deputy Leader, Housing and Customer Service on the 9th of November 2022 at 7 p.m. Item 1, to note substitutes in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4. I have Councillor Clark substituting for Councillor Coote. Item 2, to receive apologies for absence. I have Councillor Coote and Councillor Sam Smith. Point 3, item 3, to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. I see none, thank you. Item 4, to confirm the meeting, the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of September 2022. If you'd all please vote whether you agree with those minutes. Railway station.
It's on the screen.
Press the green. Done it twice.
Indicate pressing that.
That's it. Okay, thank you very much. 10 in favour and 2 abstentions, so the minutes are agreed. Thank you very much. Item 5, to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. Moving on to item 6, capital programme monitoring, starting on pages 7. I'd like to introduce Louise Duffield, Director of Resources and Organisational Development. Welcome to the Council. Delighted to have you.
Thank you and good evening, members. I think I met many of you at Council. So in introducing the capital programme monitoring, I just wanted to address the overall nature of the scheme. We're delivering a fantastic number of programmes across the district, and the vast majority of them, despite a challenging economic climate, are really delivering well. What I've tried to do in this report is start to reflect the complex nature of some of the programmes. So you'll see that we've rephased the funding, because in a number of cases we were financially profiling the whole of the project in 1 year, when actually we always were planning to deliver on a rolling basis. So as we go forward, we'll try to give you a more accurate reflection of how that will be profiled across the programme. So, like I said, the vast majority of schemes are on track, and we have colleagues here if you had any specific questions about individual schemes.
Thank you, Louise. Members, any questions on the report? Councillor Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman. I've still not got used to these buttons. Page 10 in Appendix A. I see we've spent an amount of monies on several projects at Oaklands here. This is a bit of an oblique question, Chairman, and I hope you'll rest with it. We are investing money in Oaklands. I would be interested to know how many of our staff consistently work at Oaklands and how many work at home. I would be interested to know what the plan is for this hybrid method of working, whether it's envisaged to continue. And if it is envisaged to continue, what is the thinking about the Oakland site itself? As I said, it's got a sort of oblique reference to this, but if we're investing money in Oaklands, I'd like to see that it's viable for the long term. Thank you.
Okay, I understand your question. Thank you, Councillor Trumbull. I'll refer to the Chief Exec, Catherine Hall, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So, good set of questions, and it's not the first time we've been asked them, Councillor Trumbull, so thank you.
I think I lost them.
You have, indeed. I think we, in terms of the number of staff attending the site, it varies. But what we know if you can remember, something I've briefed you on before as members is that we're operating in an employment market where we're very short of skills, and it's very difficult to recruit and keep people in the local government family at the moment. And that's a pattern we're seeing throughout West Sussex. And what we know from that data is that we must offer agile working in order to attract the best candidates. So that's the first thing we need to know. And that's not just in our sector, that's in a lot of sectors where people are requiring that. So we know to stay competitive that that's something that we need to be able to offer staff, which in turn takes one to around working patterns and how best to use the space, what sort of work should be done here and what sort of work should be done at home. And we're starting to pilot different ways of using our space here for optimum effect. What our working hypothesis is that bringing people together is best where the work requires active collaboration and detailed discussion, and that's the sort of work that we will be doing on campus going forward. And to do that, we will probably need to change the way some of the spaces work, because as you know, this building is a little bit like a rabbit warren in places, lots of small spaces that don't lend themselves to that. So we may have to redesign some of the space to support collaboration. And that's what we're working on, and we'll be rolling that out over the next year or so and seeing how that works in terms of productivity. But just to remind you that throughout the pandemic, remote working was extremely positive for us as a council in terms of productivity. On your wider question about the future of the site, I think that's something that we shouldn't Snapchat, would be my advice, particularly where the property market is at the moment. I think it's something for us to think about carefully in terms of what our future needs may be. And you may remember one of the big requirements always for a council is a chamber. And they're not easy spaces to acquire. So that's one of the other things we need to remember about we're not so much like a business, we do need a space like this. So there's lots of things to consider, but just to reassure you, we are actively working on how to use the space best, but it is important that we retain agile working. Does that help?
It does, thank you, Chief Executive. May I, Chairman, just...
You come back, please, yeah.
To the first part of my question. Do we know what percentage of staff are working here on a consistent basis and what percentage are working at home? Not that I'm, and it's not, yeah. I recognise fully, Chairman, it's not our role to manage the operation. I just want to see the viability of ours.
I get where you're coming from, yeah.
Yeah, just wait for this. It varies. Each of the teams do it on a different basis. It varies day to day in terms of attendance. It's very much driven by the business. So I don't have percentages, and I don't think you do you, Si? No. But it's variable according to business.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've got a few little points. Some of them are very easy to answer. It's just my ignorance on some of this. Firstly, on page 9, with regard to Forestfield playground improvements, I don't understand what's meant in the commentary box where it says retention held until August 23. That's one thing. And on page 10, the Swanmead development, am I right in thinking that is temporary housing being built? I wasn't sure what that was. And on the same page, moving into the digital and technology, we've got the completed works for the rural connectivity programme. How far has that gone? My thinking is it's Arding Line, as that's as far as it goes. Perhaps somebody could confirm that for me, please. And finally, on the last page, page 13, the telephone system replacement. Now, this is something that's been going on for years. It's not something that's just in this current year. It's been going, I've been on this committee for a long time, and it's always seems to be on as a programme and never actually finished. So what's suggested here is going to be completed in March 2024. But the other impact of this lack of updated telephony is it impacts on other reports within this paper, particularly in the performance indicators, because you can't give us the data that we've asked for because the telephony doesn't give us that information. So can we say that this is really going to happen, or is it just going to get dragged on and kicked into the long grass yet again? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockwell. Forest Field, Rob, Mr. Anderton. You able to take that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, a retention is essentially a sum of money that's retained after the project is completed to help us deal with any defects, and so we've got some recourse back to the contractor, and so we then pay it over once we're satisfied that everything's to our satisfaction.
Thank you. The following three questions for you, Mr. Hugh Simon. Swanmead, the connectivity and the telephony, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so Swanmead, you're right, that is temporary accommodation, and that work is effectively underway, so we're looking at planning that work. There's a lot of work around design, and that will include things like the fabric, what materials we use, and as you'll appreciate, we're trying to select materials that are easily obtained so we can deliver that on target. With digital connectivity in the rural programme, yes, it does go to Ardingly, correct there, and as you'll know, the whole of that programme is very much around introducing, if you like, the motorways, so where lots and lots of data and information goes, and then firms come in and connect up more communities and more connections, and we can see that happening now. And then on page 13, telephony. You're right, that is a programme that has gone over multiple years. Phase 1 has been completed. So that was with our customer services team, and that was completed during COVID, so they're able to work both here and remotely, and that's important in terms of workloads. And the second phase, the reason that has been, we've reprofiled that, is to link with our work around service redesign and service improvements, because telephony, as I'm sure you're aware, isn't just answering the phone, it's how you take a flow of work through an organisation. So it's very much about designing those workflows as much as it is around introducing new technology. So what we want to do is make sure we spend that money most effectively and it aligns with changes in how we do things. So that's why that phase links to that work that we're planning now into next year. On the performance indicators, I'll hand over to my colleague Simon Jones to answer the more complex questions, if that's okay.
Thanks, Simon. Around the performance indicators, the previous telephony system, I won't bore you with the details, but was very, very antiquated, but allowed for a manual collection of data, and that's what was presented to members previously. And the new telephony system, phase 1, as Simon was saying, our primary goal was to deliver a flexible telephony solution to allow staff to continue to work effectively both remotely and on site, and that was the main goal. The technology that we moved into was very new to the marketplace, very, very good technology, but in its infancy, and so therefore didn't deliver the kind of data that we would have plugged into the old performance indicators that members were passed. What we will do now moving forward is we're working with a number of suppliers to build some new performance indicator capabilities, and we'd love to work with members to find out what it is you guys really want to know so that you can get the data that's most meaningful to you and to our residents. And we'll be happy to report that back to members. So we'll hopefully be working with you very soon on that.
Wish to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, going back to our rural connectivity, are there any plans to take it any further than Ardingly, say up to East Grinstead, so that it covers the rural aspects of our district, notably my rural district. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, there are. What I would say is that they are not that's not necessarily work we will do, as in we will do the capital work, but we are working now with providers of internet connectivity and digital infrastructure, and they're looking at areas within mid-Sussex, like your area, that will plan to invest in. So there's various techniques they use, which isn't just about digging up the ground. It's also about using poles and existing duct. And we're also working with West Sussex around Wi-Fi connections, so connections that can be delivered to rural areas at low cost and then build from there. And we're part of a programme with the government that's going live in the next 6 weeks that will help to do that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Janice Henwood, please.
Oh, thank you. Page 10, changing places toilets. Certainly in the past, there used to be funding, so I'm interested whether the District Council did apply for any funding to build these changing places toilets. And also on page 11, there's several, I don't know what you call them, abbreviations, like I wondered what RP stands for and what SANG stands for.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, okay. Simon, Mr. Hughes, changing places, would you like to answer that?
Yes, certainly. So there's been limited funding available for changing places. That's actually funded through our own capital. And what's really good news is that programme is underway and on target. So we'll certainly be making a very big difference to the orchard shortly.
Okay. And the acronyms, I missed the first one. I know the SANG you said. What was the first one?
The first was RP.
Okay, we're going to have a Christmas competition on council acronyms, but Judy, would you like to answer that, please?
Yes, so SANG is a suitable alternative natural green space.
Suitable alternative natural green space.
Correct. And RP, actually, I think is already, I think there's a code on here. But anyway, it's a revenue project.
Thank you. I have next Councillor Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions from me. First on page 10, going back to Councillor Stockwell's question about Swanmead. That's in the facilities section of the report, and then the next section down from there is under housing, where there's a further 1.8 million for temporary accommodation. My question is whether, so as I understand it, Swanmead is a facility owned by MSDC. Is that 1.5 million for Swanmead going to deliver the finished units, or is some of that 1.8 million under the temporary accommodation line going to be needed to kind of top up and finish off Swanmead? So is there kind of overlap between the two? That was my first question.
Should we just take that one first?
Sure.
Judy, you want to take that? Thank you.
Yes, so in total, over the last 3 years, the council have allocated 8.2 million towards provision of temporary accommodation. So the 1.8 is the money that was set aside to deliver. It was part of a £2.8 million package to deliver temporary accommodation, which we were acquiring from the market, and or from housing associations if they were wanting to disinvest. The Swanmead project is a separate project. You're quite right, and it's in facilities because it is a facility that we've owned, and we will be redeveloping it for temporary accommodation, and that has its own pot of funding, which was agreed by Cabinet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And my second question is page 12, and it's landscapes and leisure. Looking at the parks that were identified for improvement through the draft master plans. I think that only 3 of them are identified here, but there were originally 3 others, which was Belmont, St John's and Brooklands. if those three that are missing are going to be addressed at a later date, what are the formal criteria for deciding which to prioritise now? And can we see the documentation for that process, please? And can you tell us a firm date when the other three parks will see improvement work begin? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderton, Rob, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Councillor Bennett's absolutely right. There are 6 parks that were identified. They were phased over a period of time. So the 3 that are in the capital programme this year were master planned first. They were master planned in 2019-20. London Road, Belmont, and the other 2 sites were master planned a year later. So the intention is, now that we have done all the consultation around those master plans, that we develop a business case, look at the available Section 106, look at a funding model with a view to actually putting a proposal together for the implementation of that site and the other 2 sites towards the latter end of the coming financial year.
Wish to come back?
Yeah, so in terms of the dates when those other improvement works are going to begin, are we talking 2024?
Yes.
So 24, 25 or 23, 24?
I think that's subject to agreement. So we're going to be developing the funding case and putting a capital proposal together over the coming financial year. Whether that culminates in implementation towards the latter part of next financial year or early the financial year after is yet to be confirmed.
Thank you. And last, Councillor Anne Eves, please.
Thank you, Chair. 3 questions on pages 11 and 12. Electric vehicle charging points on page 11. There are still problems with Cypress Road car park, and apparently the lights have gone out as well. So I wonder if someone can tell me what the problem is. If it's too technical, in writing is also fine. Second question is about page 12, the Beadlands Gypsy and Traveller site. £500,000 for repairs. I just wondered what that was. And because it says negotiations are underway, so more detail on that would be appreciated. And the Martlet's Temporary Urban Park, bit of a contradiction there. It says project on target to be completed 22-23, then it says expected completion February 22. So more detail on exactly when you think that might be finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Simon, electric charging point and the Martlets, would you like to take, please? Martlets Temporary Urban Park.
Thank you. Yes, so on the first, we'll provide you the written response, so we'll give you some more detail on that you've asked for. On the third, well, the second, which was Martlets, that's actually a typo. We're expecting the work to undergo, well, that work is being planned and will be happening this financial year.
So April 23?
No, that work on the park will be happening from, well, basically from in the next couple of weeks, really, until over Christmas.
Okay. And Judy, would you like to take the Beadlands Traveller site question?
Yes, so I think you're aware of the Beadlands site, and you'll be aware of the very complex history surrounding the site and the tenure of that particular G&T site. So we have set aside the money to do some fairly significant repairs to the site. It involves drainage, acoustic fencing, toilet and washing facilities. It is extensive. They are repair works that are really important. When it says negotiations, we basically will need to work closely with the residents to minimise the amount of disruption to them. and we may need to negotiate with them around staying away temporarily and providing them with temporary or moving them around the site, such is the nature of the drainage works in particular that's required. And obviously now is not the best time to start doing groundworks and disrupting people. So we've agreed with the residents that we will delay that and start on site in the early spring when the weather gets better.
Thank you. You wish to come back, Councillor? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Say that one of the residents said he was aghast that the plans were for a low fence instead of a high one. They've all got dogs, you know, so it's not a good idea. But, you know, I'm sure you're aware. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Whittaker.
Chairman, yeah, just to say, I'm very, very pleased to see the Hill Place Farm saying in East Grinstead is live and operational, and as members will be aware, it's a strategic saying, so that's really good news for the sort of planning future. So well done to everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. I see no more indications, so moving to the recommendation, the scrutiny... Oh, beg your pardon? Oh, sorry, Councillor Belsey.
Just clarify, just in terms of the questions from Councillor Bennett, just about the parks. St John's Park was master planned at the same time as the other three, but it was a year behind in terms of the phasing. That was all. So the other three parks down here started this year, and St John's Park is scheduled to start next year. The other parks, like London Road, Sussex and Brooklands, were always a year behind and were never scheduled to start. This year it's just that St John's Park is a year behind in terms of the actual commencement, but it was master planned at the same time as the other three.
Okay, thank you. I see no more indications. So moving to recommendation, the Scrutiny Committee is recommended to note the update. Please vote now. Yeah, okay, that's 12 in favour. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, draft corporate plan and budget 2023-24, consultation process, page 15, introduction by Louise again. Thank you.
Yeah, so members, this is part of the annual cycle of budget setting, and this report just sets out the dates on which you'll receive draft papers, the timescale that you have to respond, and then the additional meeting where we'll focus with all members of management team here to answer your questions. Standard part of the annual process, but happy to take any questions if you have any.
Is it a standard approach we adopt every year? I don't see any indication, so we'll move to the recommendation, which is the Scrutiny Committee is recommended to agree the proposed approach. Please vote now. Okay, that's 12 in favour. Thank you very much. Moving on, item 8, performance monitoring for the second quarter of 2022-2023. Introduction by Louise again.
Yes, sorry. So just introducing the performance report, I think what you'll see overall here is really strong performance across the council. A few areas where we're working to improve them. Hopefully there's lots of information there given in terms of how we understand those issues and how they'll be rectified. But again, range of colleagues here to take specific questions across the directorates in the council.
Okay, we'll do it in the normal format. We'll do page by page or section by section. So we'll start with building control. Any indications? I see none. Community services. Oh, sorry, Alison. Yes, Councillor Bennett, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, my question was before we get to the indicators, but actually on the report, page 18, and there was the summary in paragraph 9 of the electric vehicle charging points, which we requested at the last meeting, I think. So thank you very much for providing these. My question is really what we're planning to do with this going forward, and also the usefulness of the data as presented. It doesn't, for example, give fair comparison between the different sites, if that's what we're aiming for. It doesn't tell us what the sessions are, how many charging sessions there were per charger, and that would give you a better point of comparison, given that not all the car parks have got the same number of chargers. And we also know that the chargers were installed at different points during the year, and it's not clear from this whether we're comparing like for like, or whether there are different numbers of days when once they've been installed that they're actually up and running, and whether this is all the time available, or whether it's all like taken from the same time period. So I was just wondering, what the thinking is on presenting it like this, and how we're going to present it going forward, if indeed it's going to become a permanent feature.
Could I ask just, Councillor Bennett, what's your objective to go into sort of further granularity?
Well,
what are you trying to get out of it? That's what I'm trying to understand.
The data as presented isn't very useful, if I'm being honest. You've got Trinity Road car park has Pierpont with 8 charging points, and I don't know, Denman's Lane, Linfield with 4 charging points. And not surprising, they've got different amounts of kilowatt hours being used, different numbers of sessions, different number of users, but you've not worked out how well each of those units are performing.
Okay, got it. Mr. Anderton, would you like to take that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, Councillor Bennett, you're absolutely right. This is something that is still in implementation phase. There are still some sites to come on board. The information that you've got here represents some sites that have been in for some time, others that have been in for much less time. It's only a snapshot of the data that we can report. And actually, we're talking to colleagues at West Sussex County Council and Connected Curb, who are the contractors who are implementing this, about what sort of reporting capabilities the system has, so that we can actually get as much useful data as possible, because we share your views on that, in the data here, high level, not really giving us very much useful management data, let alone the sort of data that perhaps you might want as a committee. So we're looking at that at the moment with the contractor, and we're talking to the cabinet member about that as well, in terms of how we can get a better set of data. And then obviously there's a supplementary question about what we actually report into this committee, and on what sort of frequency.
Can I ask what sort of time frame you're thinking about for getting extra sort of data? Where do you think we would be at? 3 months, 6 months' time?
Chairman, I think that's reasonable. As I say, we're talking about this now. We've only recently started pulling data out from the system, and we're talking to the contractor about how they can improve that reporting function. So I think 3 to 6 months is perfectly reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Community services on page 22. Any questions? Can I speak from that point? Okay, well, let's close this off, shall we? This point is, if anybody's got any more points on this, particularly on the data on charging points. Councillor Lee.
Thank you. So, a very interesting question. There's kind of a question behind it, though, isn't there, that also needs to come out, which is, with all of our metrics, we're wanting to push things in the right direction. So the open question on this, which isn't clear to me, is what does good look like anyway with regard to these charging points? Is it lots and lots of use? Is it lots and lots of power? Is it value for money in some sort? I don't know where that comes from and where that gets sorted out.
I think it's an interesting question. Something to go away and think about that one, because I think we'll all have a view on that. Anybody got any more questions on the data on charging points? I see no more indications. Okay, well, nothing on community services, land charges, legal and member services. Councillor Stockwell.
Oh no, sorry, it was landscapes. I haven't got the...
I've missed one, environmental health. Okay. Land charges, legal and member services, finance, landscapes. Councillor Lynn Stockwell.
Thank you, we got there. Yes, looking at the satisfaction of the ground maintenance services, and it says they've moved from face-to-face to online, and it's got anonymous feedback, fair enough. Are we inviting people to give to complete surveys? Are we telephoning them, emailing them, or how does it work? Because if we're getting more surveys or less surveys, depending on how it's going, how can we have a comparison between one quarter and another? I'm just trying to get a feel for how this is actually working. Can somebody help me there, please?
Rob, would you like to try and answer that one?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is an initiative that came about as a consequence of COVID initially, because we were approaching people in the parks, and then when that became more difficult, obviously we looked at an alternative way of doing this, and so the online feedback, unlike the surveys which were done in fixed tranches, if you like, when we went out and did a concerted effort, it's live all the time, so people can always go in and they can provide their feedback on a particular site. The team have, for the generic inboxes, they have a link to the survey as part of the email signature. We provided, we've issued some social media material on this to encourage people to participate. It's in its early stages at the moment. We have targets around the number of surveys we want to achieve on an annual basis, and we're going to be pushing the survey to make sure that we can achieve those. I think in terms of the actual performance, the 66%, that's not about the number of surveys we're getting. That's about the opinions of those who've replied around the quality of our sites. And I think that's because people are more inclined to perhaps vent their spleen a little bit more anonymously via an online survey than they would be if they were approached in person by a grounds maintenance operative.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Trumbull, was your question in relation to landscapes?
It is, Chairman. Building on what Rob has just said, we're obviously getting much more detailed information from these online surveys. And yes, the value is 66% against a target of 85. People are venting their spleen or whatever. It'd be interesting to know, are they venting their spleen about particular sites? So in other words, are particular sites showing up as giving less satisfaction? And if that's the case, what are we doing about them? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's too early to start getting those patterns yet, but we are certainly getting a lot more valuable data than we used to get from the face-to-face surveys, whether that's about site-by-site information or whether it's about themes in terms of be it bins or grass cutting or whatever it is. So we're able to start generating a lot more of a rich picture of what's causing people issues in our parks and indeed what they like. So over time we'll start sort of developing a more detailed report around that in order to enable us to work with our contractors and address any issues that do come forward. But I can't give you any of the details at this stage because we simply do not have the numbers to give an accurate picture.
So we watch this space.
Thank you. Councillor Stockwell.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for letting me come back. Just raising on this same question. Are there any signs in the parks to say, please give us your views, or perhaps with a QR code thing where they can do something and it takes them to a particular web page where they can fill in their questionnaire? Because you could find a situation where you get one person filling it in, and that's the data that you get for the quarter or something. I've got no idea. So it's just trying to think about how are we getting the message out to those people who use our facilities, our parks, that they can tell us how wonderful they are, or if there is something wrong with them. Thank you.
Chairman, yeah, I think this is a work in progress. So as I say, it was something that we initiated in response to COVID. We're finding it really useful and we think it's the right way to go. And as time goes on, we're looking at other ways of promoting it. And absolutely signage, QR codes and so on are all part of that package.
Thank you. No more indications of that. Property and asset maintenance. White. Councillor Trump.
Sorry, Chairman, I seem to be speaking rather a lot. Auctions. I see that footfall's up 7.5% in round terms this quarter last year. That's good. But, and it's also good to see that we're collecting pretty much all events. That's excellent. But do we know what similar sites are doing? What the footfall picture is in similar kind of sites elsewhere? So how are we doing comparatively? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trumbull. Sally, would you like to take that one?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we do. We have commissioned and have commissioned since the start of COVID a company called Visitor Insights to provide granular details on our 3 town centres. So we have month-on-month, year-on-year comparable data for each of our town centres and the 5 largest villages within the district. I'm happy to report that generally the footfall is going the right way in terms of it is increasing month on month and year on year. There have been some surprising findings. Some of the villages at the outset were doing a lot better because people were working from home and supporting their local communities. So we were finding the villages, the footfall was actually increasing fantastically well. But I'm glad to say that the town's footfall is increasing healthily, as is dwell time.
Do we know how we compare to, say, Horsham, a similar kind of setup?
I'll try and answer that one.
Generally, people are trying to measure footfall because it is a reasonable indicator of the health of the town centre. Not everybody uses the same data set or the same company, so it's difficult to make a direct comparison. But footfall generally is increasing.
Councillor Alison Bennett, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Trumbull's question and Sally's response just prompted a question I've had lingering at the back of my mind for a week or two. Probably about a year ago now, those of us in the larger villages were invited to workshops run by a consultancy on village action plans, and I've not heard anything about those for a really long time and what the output was, and I was just wondering if there was any update you could provide.
Yes, I can. The action plans have all been prepared and shared because effectively they were jointly commissioned with the towns and the parishes that were involved. So I will check that because you should have seen your village action plan.
Okay.
I will do indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Janice Henry.
It's to do with number of subscriptions to the green waste composting. Have there been more green bins actually manufactured? Because I know some residents wanted them. And does this include the new customers who perhaps have taken on a green bin recently, or is this just more or less the old customers?
Rob. Thank you.
Thank you. The challenge with the green waste subscription service at the moment is not about the provision of the physical bin. It's about the fact that we have a service that is provided by 3 vehicles, and those vehicles are currently operating near capacity. So at the moment, what we are doing is we are managing new customers, bringing them onto the service as existing customers leave the service because they're moving out of the area or deciding that they don't want to avail themselves of the service anymore. And this number here, this 22,501, is all our green waste customers.
Thank you. Councillor Rodney Jackson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My question concerns the sort of section, same satisfaction with refuse collection, recycling collection and street cleaning, and no survey completed in question 2. Now I understand that sort of road sweeping, the district council is responsible for cleaning the leaves and detritus on the top of the drain covers of the road drains, but the county council is responsible for gully emptying and jetting. Now, obviously this time of the year with lots of leaf fall, it's very important that those tops of those drains are kept clear so that we reduce the amount of flooding. Now, I've talked outside this meeting to Mr Anderton about a problem we've had in Malthouse Lane in Hurstpere Point, but there's obviously, what sort of scrutiny do we have on the effectiveness of the street cleaning, and in particular the cleaning of the drain covers?
Bob?
Chairman, the satisfaction scores here are run on 3 tranches every year. So that no survey completed in Q2, basically because of the way that the surveys fall alongside our reporting system for this council. Alongside, obviously, the customer satisfaction that we gather around all of these services, which give us a good indication of how people feel about the cleanliness of the district. We also have contract monitoring officers who routinely, as part of their role, go out onto site and inspect the performance of Serco to ensure that they're performing to the standards that are prescribed in the contract. We also carry out what used to be the National Indicator 195 inspections, which is a standard, a street cleansing standard against which we assess streets across the district on a random basis throughout the year. So we have quite robust systems in place to make sure that the streets are being cleaned to the standards we prescribe.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. On that same subject, where we've got no surveys completed, are the surveys, how do you do those? Are they the same as the ones you'll be doing for the leisure park? Is it people being telephoned? Is it letters sent out? Or you just hope that somebody's going to go onto our website and complete a survey? How does it work, and how can we improve what we're doing there? Thank you.
Historically, it was a telephone survey. We used to call a random selection of people to ask them their opinions on the services that we provided. Increasingly, as people have stopped having landlines, that's becoming increasingly more challenging. And so, again, like with the landscape survey, we've moved across to an online version.
Indications on that. Economic growth, economic development and sustainability on page 27. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. A bit of a bizarre one. I might need to declare a very tenuous interest on the greenhouse gas emissions, because I've got a project to do with that. But
okay.
That's it.
Oh, okay, just very interesting. See no indications on that. Customer services and communications, 28. Councillor Lynn Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Just looking at the complaints, I think we've gone up a little bit. It's quite a range of complaints here, and I suppose what I'm saying is that because people can't speak to somebody immediately if they have an issue, because people are working from home and can't necessarily get in touch with somebody by telephone, or what's been the main thing that you feel has generated so many complaints, where in previous quarters, I'm pretty sure we've seen those going down. If you look at it from the previous Q1, there was only 23. And I'm assuming that the complaints that you do receive, where they stand up, that you're actually able to adjust services to provide what the customers actually want. Thank you.
Okay, it's good to see we've got a breakdown of where the particular complaint area is in. That's very good, thank you. Mr. Hughes, Simon.
Yes, thank you. So what we see is complaints do vary across the year. partly around the touch points people have to services. So what we'll be bringing to you in the new year is a report on complaints and information that we've received out of services. So you'll get a full report from that in the final quarter of the year. I think the only other things to say is that when what we're finding with the new telephony system is we're able to respond more quickly, so that's positive, and we're able to identify issues that we can resolve at the point of first contact. So we're not necessarily seeing a significant increase and that trend persisting. It tends to be episodic and tends to be linked to the demands around those services. What we are also seeing is, and you'll see that from reporting on page 29, is compliments. And it's different sides of the same coin. So we're getting a lot of people, more compliments coming through as well. And again, that varies. That's partly seasonal, partly as people contact services. But as you know, we'll report on the trends in the last quarter of the year.
Councillor Rachel Cromie, please.
Referring to the revenues, I think it's still important to note the extreme strain that department is on. They're doing so much more than that department is geared up for, and it continues. So where there are some of the issues around delays, I think there needs to be a little understanding about the fact that some things will slip while they're trying to facilitate a huge amount of grants to the entire constituency and district.
Thank you. Moving on to housing on page 30. I see no indications. Human resources. Oh, beg your pardon. A bit slow here. Me.
I've always got something to say. It says on the number of households assisted to access private rented in the private rented sector, and that that's been very difficult. I understood that a year or so ago we actually had an officer who was employed to facilitate this, and I wonder if that was still in place. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Simon, Mr. Jones, would you like to take that one?
All right.
No? Judy's going to take it.
Yes, that officer is still in place, but it is incredibly difficult to place homeless families into private rented. Compared to many other places, we don't have that much private rented accommodation, and what we do have is obviously, therefore, in competition, there's a lot of competition for it, and frankly speaking, landlords can pick and choose, and they don't often choose to want to take tenants who actually are reliant on benefits.
Councillor Anne Eves.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask about, on that same page, how many of these Band A people who are high priority would be Ukrainians, or what proportion? Any idea? I know a lot of them are coming to the end of their 6 months.
Judy, do you want to drop it? Yeah.
Are you taking it, Judy?
Yes, yes. None of them. None of them. These are all people who are mainly in our temporary accommodation, but at the moment they're not part of our housing service.
Councillor Lynn Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Eves sort of prompted me to ask a question on that same basis. What percentage of these applicants on the housing register are from the armed forces? Are they service leavers or veterans? Is that a question you can answer?
It's like University Challenge, isn't it? This is your starter for 10.
I agree, it's brilliant.
I'll take this one.
I don't, thanks for that. We have supplied some data, I think, on veterans before. I think there was a previous question on it, but we're happy to go away and provide that data for you. So we don't have that to hand, but we'll provide it.
Again, if you can feed it back to all the members on the committee, it'd be great. Thank you very much.
Shame, yeah.
I think that's covered the housing. No more indications. Human resources. I see no indications. ICT and digital. Revenue and benefits. No indications. Leisure operations. Oh, is that on the previous one, Councillor Stockwell?
No, I missed it, sorry, human resources.
Okay.
We have indicators or data only for ethnic minorities represented on the workforce and for employees with a disability. We don't have one for the armed forces who are service leavers or veterans. Is that something that we can have, please? As part of, we've signed up to the covenant, to the Armed Forces Covenant, and we have a bronze employee recognition scheme, and I feel this is something that we should be promoting and bringing forward. And why don't we work towards the next goal?
Is that something we can report back on, or do you have the answer? Louise?
Answer. Yes, so obviously any employee personal data they need to be confident to give to us, and we need to have a mechanism for recording. If I can take away just looking at what we do have on our staff, and then I can come back to you at the next committee.
I understand that some people will prefer not to say. I understand that. But if those who are willing, it would be good to see what we've got.
Of course.
Leisure operations on page 34. Councillor Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman. Where are we? Yes, here we are. We're 22,000 up on last quarter. I'm just wondering what the contribution is now to the council financially from this.
Rob or Simon?
Yes, so we currently have 600,000 per annum contribution.
600,000
per annum. It's a contribution to us, yes.
So we are getting 600 grand per annum?
Yes. Yeah.
When is that? Sorry, Chairman.
No, please.
When is that revised?
It's a 1 year only agreement. Yeah. So yes, sorry. So that's a 1 year only agreement. We're currently in negotiation for the coming year. And that'll form part of our service and financial planning.
Okay, so come the year 23-24, we'll be back in negotiations again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I'm pretty impressed with how the leisure centres have bounced back, and I think it was many other councils are actually looking to close facilities. I noticed, I think one in Sussex was closing a swimming pool for 6 months. So I think how the council were able to support it and get it through the COVID. The other thing, I'd say there's a lot of other not leisure centres, gyms popping up, probably because of COVID, increased a lot of other people looking at gyms. So we are under a lot of competition from these other gyms. So the question, I think, is we're doing very well, we'll be back on track, but how do we stay there? Thank you.
Mr. Anderton. Rob, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, that's a very important point, and actually something that we'll be discussing with Scrutiny for leisure and parking next week. So, yes, COVID obviously presented an enormous challenge to the leisure operation. We have recovered well from that. Now we're facing significant stresses in respect of energy costs, and we also have a significant and growing competition from budget gyms on the high street. So all of that mixes together to culminate in the conversations that Simon's just alluded to in respect of what we do with our management fee going forwards and how we make sure that the operation is sustainable in the long term.
Thank you. Parking services and electrical vehicle charging. Sort of covered this a bit earlier. Okay, thank you. Development management on page 36. Councillor Janice Henwood.
The last one, planning enforcement site visits, I think maybe that target, is that a bit low? The target of 80%, shouldn't we be reaching for a bit higher? This is enforcement within 10 days of complaint.
Sally, please.
Thank you very much. We have to set targets that are challenging but realistic at the same time. And I think 80% is a reasonable target to set, although you'll see that both for Q1 and Q2 we exceeded that target. Every year we can review targets and set stretch targets. So we are at the stage now of currently reviewing those. But we have to make sure that given the staff resources that we have, we also set targets that are realistic as well as aspirational. As I say, we do exceed those currently. We always strive to exceed the targets for all of our planning targets. So they're not seen as absolute targets. We always strive to achieve higher.
Thank you. And the last section, housing enabling. See no indication. Oh, Councillor Whittaker, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think that excellent figures, 184 in the quarter, I think is a great result. And we know, obviously, recently we had a very illuminating site visit at Brookley East and West by Homes England, and we know that the first phase there of 140 phase are all affordable homes, so the future pipeline is looking good. So those figures are very encouraging, so thank you.
Good, thank you for your comments, Councillor Whittaker. Okay, no more indications. The recommendations on page 17, the Scrutiny Committee is recommended to note the Council's performance in the second quarter of the year and to identify any areas where further reporting or information is required. And in item 2, there were no items that the committee considered should be given particular interest to the Cabinet. So if you'd just like to vote on that, please. Thank you. That's all 12 in favour. Thank you very much. Moving along to item 9, Scrutiny Committee for Leader, Deputy Leader and Housing and Customer Services Work Programme 2022-23. Mr. Wild? He's there, sorry. Been very quiet.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is a standing item on the committee's agenda, which asks the members to note and approve the indicative work programme for the remaining 2 meetings in the municipal year, and they're set out in the report for consideration.
Councillor Lynn Stockwell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't at the last meeting, which was a shame, because I read, having read all the minutes. But there was a report by the Mid-Sussex Partnership with various actions within that. Now, I just wondered when we were going to have the reported actions coming back to us. I know that was an annual report, Mid-Sussex Partnership annual report. But as I say, there did seem to be quite a few actions in there for people to come back with different reports. So I wondered if that was something that we needed to put into our meeting at some point, or if it's going to go to another few months before we have that meeting.
Chief Exec, please.
I'm just waiting for something to happen.
Okay.
I think we fed back, actually, Councillor Stockwell. I think we did after the meeting. I think we circulated it to all members of the committee. So if you've missed that, we'll send it round again.
Should we do that?
Of course,
Thank
yeah,
you.
of course we will.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. The recommendation is committee's recommendation to agree the indicative work programme as set on paragraph 5 of the report. If you vote now, please. That's everybody in favour. Thank you very much. Item 10, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2. Due notice of which has been given. I have none. Therefore, I close the meeting at 8:05. Thank you very much, everybody. If you just remain seated until the live feed turns off.